All right, y'all. We back live in effect, coming from the Spark Studio,
Spark Social.
Spark Social. I'm sorry, Spark Social Studio. Hopefully, we are going to transform and elevate. We're entering, we're about to hit 20 episodes pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 5 months.
It is great. It's fulfilling. It's therapeutic. It's all of that, right? For those joining mid late, we ask you to go back and watch. All episodes are on Spotify, Apple Play, Apple Podcasts, YouTube channel at Maroon Bison. Kevin and I are two graduates of historically black colleges. You know that line from Outkast song, one at Clark, one at Spelman, but no. One from the house and one from what is the Howard? What are y'all?
The Mecca.
The Mecca. Okay.
What?
I didn't say anything.
You go out of your.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say
and I'm
anything.
wearing a Spelman hat for my wife, but y'all go out of y'all way talking about Howard is bougie. And
We
like all
did
this other
not
stuff.
say.
But you say more stuff toward me. I don't even be saying nothing. I let y'all have y'all little,
Let us have what?
College.
Let us have what?
Howard University. I'm just saying there's a difference.
Let us have what?
We're in different levels. That's all I'm saying.
Y'all need to create yourselves to become a university to make
What do
yourselves
you
feel
mean?
good.
What do you mean?
You can put
What do
lipstick
you
on a
mean?
pig and still a pig.
What don't you like? The black doctors, the black lawyers, the black judges, the black what about the black excellence that is Howard University? Are you against? We don't bother Morehouse. Y'all good.
There's no need to bother us.
I agree. That's
right?
why
Leave us alone.
We
sitting chilling on a red clay hill.
Then stay there.
We've been there. What you mean, bro? I'm pretty sure the last episode you was like, man, I come to y'all homecoming because it's better.
First of all, I did not say it's better. I did not say it's better.
Listen, bro,
I come to y'all's.
My sugar is dropping.
It's closer to my house, and my wife went to Spelman. What I don't what y'all you and y'all by proxy.
My sugar
always starting with us.
My sugar is dropping.
I know, cause y'all can't hang.
Listen, bro, it's tough. So while we are still arguing about what school was founded first,
that'll never end. Well, the argument about that will end, but we'll never not argue about our school.
It's not even really an argument.
It really isn't. It's like, I always say this, it's like HBCUs is like siblings. Like you fight and talk shit amongst yourselves, but in the real world, it's us against everybody.
That's very true.
I love every single one of them, but I'm always gonna talk trash.
Almost all of them. Some of them, I'm like, what are you doing?
And I'm gonna get in trouble. And you know exactly one of the people we're gonna get in trouble with for saying this. I don't get the rattlers and the hissing. That shit's weird, but I still love them. They in the HBCU family, but
for now,
that's some weird. That's some weird. I don't get the hissing.
Yes, Tamia, we're talking about you. Yes, Tamia Booker, we're talking about you, and we will have you on to defend yourself. What is?
Explain yourself. What is this?
Please don't hiss at us.
Please don't hiss at us.
Oh man, could you imagine going to school in Tallahassee?
But you know what though? When I was doing the Gillum race, that was my first time. Their homecoming is actually really fun.
Yes,
it is a very nice campus
because it's space.
Oh yeah,
that's the only reason why.
Same with A&T. I did their homecoming space. On the Hillary campaign with Jesse Jackson. And that was an experience, and that was fun.
I bet with Jesse it probably was.
He had us everywhere because nobody's going to tell him no. So he just went over there and said, I want to pray with the players before we go. Because first of all, when Jesse Jackson is a surrogate, there is no schedule.
There is no schedule.
He picks where he wants to go, and we just kind of roll with it. And so we was
particularly when it's a place like North Carolina.
Yes, and we was just on the campus, nothing planned beforehand, no tickets to nothing. Didn't matter. You with Jesse Jackson, they let everybody in, and so we was down there praying with the players and stuff, man, before they went on the field.
Was Shelly still around at that time?
Yeah.
I like Shelly.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we randomly ended up at just like a barbecue. And to this day, I don't think Reverend Jackson knew them people, but it didn't matter.
But it's funny because
he got us all fed.
I was about to say, that's one thing you're going to do when you with Reverend Jackson. You're going to eat.
You're going to eat, and you ain't going to pay.
You're not going to pay. Hey, bruh, we went to Busy Bees and shut that thing down. They kicked people out. Come on, Reverend Jackson.
Yep.
Come on right on in.
Yep. Sit right up here.
Bruh. Usually you got to wait. They love it. Speaking of Reverend Jackson.
I mean, he was a disruptor. We talking about disruptors.
Exactly.
Disruptor. Yeah.
Transition, right?
Yeah.
Perfect transition. You know, our last episode, we were kind of talking about a continued conversation about what's going on in the National Party, the National Democratic Party, with David Hogg kind of challenging, incumbents and trying to primary them. And I think when we last talked about, we kind of touched on Senator Dick Durbin kind of stepping aside and acknowledging his time has passed, and he won't seek re-election. We talked about 5, maybe 6 members, 65 and plus, have passed in the last year or so. One of them was former mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, who actually took over for Sheila Jackson Lee, who both had passed in the last 6 months.
Yeah, it was
3 months.
Certainly within a year. Yeah.
Both, very historical figures in terms of Houston politics. But the desire to get younger, right? Senator Dianne Feinstein in Cali, right? Like,
I mean, the biggest of all, RBG wasn't a member of Congress, but,
But again, that's different when you're Supreme Court, right? Like,
well, it's different, but I think the terms and conditions are different, but the responsibilities are the same, and I would argue even greater on the Supreme Court. And a lot of people see that as a tarnishment of her legacy, that they kind of felt like she held on a little too long. But she wanted Hillary to pick her replacement, and a lot of people wanted her to maybe step down while Obama was president. But in fairness to her, Obama had a vacancy toward the end of his presidency, and the Republicans wouldn't let it come up for a vote. So there's no guarantee that it would have gone through. But she, ends up kind of getting a side eye a little bit like Joe Biden.
Right.
Like, you kind of held on too long.
So, it speaks on sort of Democrats who are a little long in the tooth. Should they step aside, or should, again, someone challenge them in terms of, you need to take the torch or pass the torch, right? Every situation is different. Every state, every district is different, right? I spoke about a young man challenging David Scott, who is the Congress member of the Georgia 13th. David Scott has long been the chairman of the Agricultural Committee. I think he's probably been in Congress over 15, 20 years. At some point in time, he was voted one of the most corrupt politicians, and that's Democrat and Republican, right? And
not effective.
And
one of the least effective. And I don't think there's anything wrong with demanding that they have to defend their seats and defend their record and ask you to be reelected. I think that's healthy. It's part of the reason why I'm not in favor of term limits. I think elections are our term limits, and so I think primarying and things like that are a good thing. We talk a lot on the show about Cory Booker because we love him, and people forget Cory. He was setting up to do the same thing against Frank Lautenberg.
Yep.
He said, I'm running regardless. And Frank Lautenberg was his senior member, and he ended up passing away. So Cory didn't have to do it, but Cory was ramping up to do it. He wasn't going to just wait. So I encourage that. I think that's good. I just think there's a way in which to do it. and I don't agree with the way that Hogg is going about it.
I think from my perspective, from an operative standpoint, I look at situations where we had statewide races, Michelle Nunn, Warnock, Stacey Abrams, and I look at certain congressional members, and did they do enough to help turn out the vote in their district, which in return would help. And the answer is no, they didn't. And in terms of David Scott, I can tell you right now, his district is one of the most transient districts in Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, and he's older. He's had health challenges, right? There's a lot there. But one of the things you just said too, though, that struck a chord with me is a lot of times though, when they don't come out with that full throated support that way, is because they see another black politician that's about to eclipse them. So they might engage in some self-destruction. Well, I don't get to be the first black senator for Georgia, so I ain't about to help Warnock, especially when Warnock ain't ever even been, elected to something.
Exactly.
You hear that. And I remember even when Obama was running, it was a lot of that was tinted into it. And so particularly when you have primaries of younger people kind of pushing against the system and trying to create a space and a room for them at the table, you do see a lot of that play out. And in black politics, is very prominent because it's very hierarchical, and you're supposed to wait your turn. They don't look favorably upon it when it looks like you're not waiting your turn. And there are some people like, David Scott, we're not trying to just bash him, we're just telling the truth. Ain't no waiting their turn. Like, there just needs to be a change.
Right. And it's one of those situations where primary voters are different from general voters, right?
The general election, yes.
So, when you look at Biden's debate performance, Biden's all-out performance during the last few months of his presidency, the gaffes, the slip-ups, the falls, the trips, the bike rides, the failure bike rides, right? Those images stick with voters, but I can remember my mother having a problem feeling like, why are you trying to oust this old man out of, he seems competent enough, let him do the job. And it's like, no. Not when matters of the public are at stake, right? Not when important issues are going on. We need someone who's on more than they are off. And right now, what it looks like is they're more off.
Well, that's when it flipped for Biden. That debate, and the reason it wasn't that he just gave a bad performance. Like, incumbent presidents, historically, they always suck in the first debate for re-election. You can just go, they're rusty. Whereas the challenger that they're running against has been out there going through a primary campaigning and stuff like that. So it wasn't just he had a bad debate. That's not really what did it. It was just like the man couldn't get out answers at like a certain point. Like, like, are you here? Like, can you wait a minute? Are you like this in meetings? And so that's when it became, that's when it shifted from, y'all knew how old he was and you elected him the first time. You knew how old he would be 4 years from now. Why are you tripping about him being old? To, oh no, he's too old.
And so
that's the goal.
And so that's the strategy and tactic now, right? Like, I look at, for instance, the Georgia race, right? And there are rumored of people who are looking to get into the race.
Oh, for governor?
For governor.
Yeah.
And I'm having a conversation with a friend, and I say, well, this role is a 10-year commitment. And they say, what do you mean? And look at it, right? Like, you're running now, you're running almost a year, 2 years before it's time.
Yeah.
So if it's 2 years added on to what is now a 4-year term, that's 6 years.
Yeah.
Plus another, you're going to run again in 4 years for re-election. That's 8 years, plus a 2.
For re-election while having the job.
Right. So that's a 10-year commitment.
Yes.
So if you're already 70 years old.
Right.
Why would we, in good conscience and good faith,
even vote for that?
Well,
and right now, I don't think that they would. Right. And that's one of the we'll see how it plays out in presidential politics, right? But the trickle down effect, because of what we saw in this last election with Joe Biden and age and kind of how it, public opinion, public reaction to it, you are going to see that in some of these other places. And when you talk about like a Dick Durbin and stuff like that, I think that did play a role in someone like him deciding to step aside in the way that he did. He talked about it and said, I looked at how old I would be at the end of this term. And, I was like, no, he's looking at his legacy, and what he's saying and not saying is that I don't want to go out like Biden. I don't want to, or even a Dianne Feinstein, right? I don't want to have this otherwise groundbreaking career somewhat tarnished at the end because I stayed at the party too long, right? And what Durbin is doing is a graceful exit. He's allowing time for there to be a transition, and that's what people wanted to see from Biden, and that's what Biden promised, right? When he ran before, he said, "I'll be a transitional figure," but then he got there.
Takes that power.
Power feels good, and
that water tastes different from that cup, baby.
And it was ego. It was ego. And a lot of people feel like it cost us the election.
I mean, look, the blacks are feeling me. What was?
But look, this is the thing, though. I think, what is it? Only maybe 3 years to separate Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Okay, so I don't know I don't know how you don't question Donald Trump's cognitive abilities. Okay, clearly some things are off up there. He's almost just as old as him, but so people are like, well, why did Joe Biden get it? I mean, we just had different expectations for Joe, but we always knew Donald Trump wasn't serious.
Trump's 78, Biden's 82.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so
that's a big difference. That's a big difference when you're that old.
But they're both too old.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, truthfully, for this job.
So what? How old is too old in terms of president, or is it the same across the board?
I go back to our good Georgian, Mr. Jimmy Carter, good Southerner, and
what did Uncle Jimmy say?
Well, Uncle Jimmy said, he said this when Biden was running. He said, I've been 80. And I'm the only person who's been 80 and has been president. And I can tell you that you should not be both at the same time. Jimmy said that. He said that while Biden was running.
Wise words from a decent man.
Before Biden even got the nomination, he said that. And I think once you get into like your 70s and you start getting into like your 80s, and you see this within families, right? I've heard doctors say, like, once you get into your 80s, like 1 year is like 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? So, believe it, there's a bigger difference than 4 years between 77 and 81, but still, you're up there and you're pushing it. And I think for the presidency,
you aged twice as fast.
Yes, I think, mid to late 60s is probably about as old as you probably should go for that job.
So 70 is you think 70 should be the cutoff?
I think about early 70s. I think once you start getting into the mid 70s, it gets shaky.
Okay. Would you say the same for a congressman and a senator?
Definitely a senator, because you have those statewide responsibilities. But if you're a congressman and you're chairing a committee or something like that, then I would argue that there. But I don't think you should be starting your congressional career at 76. No, I think 66, yes. And I think you can maybe do 5 terms in the House. But also, this is true for mayors, right? Like I'm very excited about Barbara Lee. She was one of my favorite CBC members. I love working with her. She's not a new mayor of Oakland, but she's up there. And Oakland got a lot of challenges right now. She's a very energetic, elder. But oof.
City politics is always, I think city politics is tougher.
I think being a big city mayor is the hardest job in politics. So, Barbara Lee is not, like I said, she's one of our elders.
You know, I introduced Barbara Lee. She had her first ever chili cheese slaw dog hanging out with me.
Oh my Lord, she's like the best.
I took her, was myself, Barbara Lee, Congressman Hank Johnson, and his wife Marita Johnson, and we drove down to Albany State for their homecoming. And I was like, "You gonna be in a ride? You gonna be in the car for a good little minute?" She's like, "What's a minute?" I was like, "About 4 hours." She's like, "Serious?" I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And I guess I guarantee you, you're gonna have a good time
once you get there.
I was like, I'm gonna get you a chili cheese slaw dog. You put all that on a hot dog? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You know they California. They don't know.
Bruh, she
California.
Listen. Can I get another one?
But should you?
Well, yes. Yes, listen. They were back in my younger days. But no, man, I what's interesting is how willing or accepting are some of the older members or even party leadership going to be open to challenging incumbents, and does that pushback cause people like you and I to deflect and run as a independent or even a Republican?
Well, I think you are going to see more openings and more Black candidates and people of color taking the opportunity to run as independents or Republicans. Like it's like a shorter wait time over there, right? Like they don't do it the same way we do on the Democratic side or within Black politics, right? And a lot of Black politicians have picked up on that, right? They're not as hierarchical on that side. They're more welcoming of people that are, going to shake the table, so to speak.
Yep.
And then also, we've always said and known that Black voters are more conservative than what their vote would suggest. But now, particularly Black men are showing more of an openness and a willingness to actually act on that and vote Republican. And so I'm not surprised that you see a number, like the only Black senator, Republican senator that's Black is from the South, Tim Scott. You got Byron Donalds, who's probably going to get the nomination to be the run for governor of Florida, has a good chance of being Florida's first Black governor. And you've had other people like, Cameron, who ran against Andy Beshear. We only won that race because it was Andy Beshear. No other Democrat would have beat him. And so you're going to see more, now they've had some missteps. Herschel Walker was definitely a misstep. But as they start to put up more serious Black candidates, you are going to see, Black Republicans, I think, having some success. And that's going to really complicate the politics for Democrats in terms of how we put together our coalition to win elections. And I think, in the South, I mean, you saw it, right? You saw it like in even the Stacey Abrams win.
Yep.
A lot of Black men voted for Kemp.
Yes.
A lot of them voted for Kemp.
I'm not one of them, but...
And
so, and I wanted to look it up because I wanted to make sure I got her name right? Like Virginia.
Oh, Winsome Sears.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
She is the current lieutenant governor.
Yep.
She's a Black woman.
Yep.
She's going up against Spanberger.
Abigail Spanberger.
Who was a Democrat, right? And so now it's going to beg the question of, if it's about Black women, are Black women going to support this Black woman?
So, I knew we were going to talk about that at some point. So I my wife and like my mother, they're part of my unofficial focus groups.
As they should be.
I ran this by my wife, and my wife said it's a no. She said they're not going to be with Winsome. But she said she, obviously stands with Black women, but she said, nah, Winsome can't come to the cookout.
What'd your mama say? Because your mother is very...
my mama just said no.
I don't want to call her out, but didn't Jill have an issue with a certain woman running for governor of Georgia?
Which time? I mean, prospective candidate or no? She was always good with Stacey. She I think she can be critical of some, and we should just let her come on and speak for herself. But
when is that gonna happen?
I don't know. I gotta, we
text.
Get
you text your wife, and I'm gonna text mine.
We gotta get that in. But she, anyway, I think she should come on and say it for herself. But you do see though within like the black community, like, yeah, like they can be tough on each other. Like I saw this when I was in Baltimore, right? Mayor Rollins Blake, some of her toughest critics were also women. They thought she was too cute. They said, why she dressed like that? She over why? And she's looking at it like, because I represent the city and I represent you, why would I not look good? Then I worked for Mayor Bowser. Some of the biggest criticism I heard from black women was that she didn't do enough. She didn't put on enough makeup, and why is her hair like that and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so that exists, right, within different pockets among that we've seen this play out with black women and black women candidates. But apparently Winsome, now I don't know, we'd have to do a deep dive as to why they not really vibing with Winsome. I don't know, but
I mean it is because she is the LG next to Youngkin.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think also what it says though too is that I wonder if it says that for black women to consider voting for a black Republican, they have a higher threshold than black men. Right? Like we seem a lot more willing to consider it and engage on it, whereas black women still seem to be a lot more discerning before they're willing to do it. Because again, a lot of us voted for Trump, so we can't say it was discernment that we were exhibiting.
Let me ask you this. If Winsome is the lieutenant governor to Brian Kemp, is it different?
No.
I don't. Brian Kemp is liked, bro.
I think it helps. It does help, right? It would be a little bit better, right, if she were attached to them. But I think it also depends on like her own profile and how she is and how she operates independent of all of that. So I'm trying to think of like say for example what's our girl that we always want, that we wish would take a look at running?
Rosalind Brewer?
Say Rosalind was a Republican. I think she's a Democrat. I don't know.
Yeah, she's a Democrat.
Okay, but say everything about her is the same, but she was a Republican. Now, see, that's different. I think black women would look at that very differently.
Different.
Now, they might switch for her.
So different.
They might switch for her, especially if, say, that was Kemp's lieutenant governor, and she didn't attach herself to the crazy stuff, which Kemp doesn't really either.
No, Kemp is
he's not
mild-mannered.
Yeah, he doesn't really do that. And say she was attached to that, but it was like Rosalind Brewer, we'd have a problem. And the thing about it is their party would unify and rally behind her in a way that we don't on the Democratic side. And so that's why I'm saying it does not surprise me that you see more black Republicans taking a look at statewide offices, and I think you're going to start to see some more of them be successful, because it won't always be Herschel Walker.
Right. Well, I mean, listen, I guarantee you, if Herschel Walker was a little bit more disciplined in what he said,
yeah,
he would have gave Warnock a run for his money.
He would have. He was just, he's just a fool. Clearly, there's some CTE going on there.
Definitely.
But say he was like a what's a good example? Say he was like Barry Sanders, right? Old Detroit line running back, but just a Republican.
Done.
He would have won.
Oh, because I said it. The Republicans thought that
they could do a Tuberville.
He was a Tuberville.
Yeah.
To Doug Jones.
Yeah, but the electorate in Alabama and the electorate in Georgia are different, right? Like you can elect you can literally Tuberville didn't even have to be a football coach. Tuberville could have just been a football and would have won that race in Alabama. He just had an R by his name. Georgia wants a little bit more.
So if that was Dominique Wilkins versus Warnock, who wins?
And Dominique was like a Republican. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dominique might take that. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise. Or, even Grant Hill has like a foothill now with the Hawks. Yes. If it was Grant Hill running as a Republican, I mean, shit, I probably would vote for Grant Hill. Yes. So,
even though we know that Grant Hill's a Democrat.
Grant Hill's a huge Democrat.
His mom and Hillary are like besties.
Yes.
College roommates.
Yes. Yeah. But, so that's all I'm saying, and a lot of people want Grant Hill to run for office in Florida because he still has residences down there. And, there are more independents in Florida now than Democrats. And so you just had the Senate majority leader there leave the Democratic Party to run for governor as an independent. Say Grant Hill came into Florida and was willing to put some of his own money into it and run as an independent. He get a lot of Democrats. He get a lot of Republicans. Not a lot, but
he would definitely get the business minded.
Yeah, he get a good chunk of them that kind of want to steer away from a lot of this social stuff that DeSantis has been doing and just want him to focus on the economy.
Who will be the Democratic candidate from coming out of Florida? Who do you think is gonna get the nomination?
I don't know. We got David Jolly, who's a former Republican, who's running. He probably will end up getting the Democratic nominee. The last times for governor in Florida, I left it blank. I didn't even vote for it.
There was a black guy. He was in Congress that I liked. Kendrick Meeks.
Yeah. I consulted on his race.
He just said, fuck yeah, I'm about to go make some money.
Yeah, he makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a lobbyist now.
His son is in politics though, isn't he?
I don't think so. His son should still be pretty young. That doesn't mean you can't be in politics and be young, but he's pretty young though. But nah.
Yeah, I wonder. It'll be interesting to see, what comes out of Virginia. It usually, like we say, it flip-flops from time to time.
Yeah. Look, we see what happened in this primary in New Jersey. New Jersey's not the South, of course, but, if Ras Baraka pulls that off, this could be like a replay. We went through this in 2018 where you had 3 African Americans with the chance of becoming governors, because we've never had 2 black governors at the same time. So wait a minute, I don't think so. Did our buddy in New York?
No, not Cuomo. I was about to say Cuomo.
No, did Patterson and Duvall didn't overlap? I don't think so.
No.
So I don't think we've ever had 2 black governors at the same time. So we went through this in 2018 where you had Andrew, Stacey, and Ben up at the same time. It could be here in 2020. Oh, no, actually we won't, because Winsome and Baraka's races are in 2025. Byron and Donalds will be in 2026. So anyway, Virginia and New Jersey might have African-American nominees for governor in the same year.
Well, speaking of...
and if
Mayor Roz,
then we would have 2 black governors at the same time in history.
He's in the news, of course, of being arrested for being arrested by ICE for kind of interfering with them trying to carry out Trump's duties of locking them up and sending them back, deportation. And I just wonder, on the outlook of him doing that, how that will play in his gubernatorial run.
So I think in New Jersey, it'll play fine, right? Like he's in a very competitive race, and I think this could be the thing that really breaks him out. But it's an interesting tactic for a black politician to do,
right?
Because immigration politics is very tricky in the African American community, and because again, by and large, like the African American community, they're not progressives, right? They're more centrist, moderate to conservative voters, and a lot of them don't, you know, they don't. A lot of political upside isn't there typically for a black politician to take that kind of a stand on immigration. So, it's notable. And look, we went through some of this too, right? When we were doing the Ben Jealous race, it was it was a very much big topic of discussion because, and I was a proponent of it, right? We had Ben go to the White House and get arrested in the primary. But what that did, though, is it secured the endorsement of CASA for us and help us mobilize the Latino community. And we did that in Maryland, which is still a southern state. But here's the thing. The strategic play was basically like, let's do it, but like we ain't gonna run on it. We never gonna put it in an ad that we went to do this because the politics are tricky, right? That's not helpful to you in Baltimore.
Well, I just wonder with this, we started out this conversation past couple episodes talking about incumbents getting primary, and I just wonder with this new surge of the desire to primary incumbents, will this bring about more black and brown candidates, male candidates of color? Will this, help usher in and try to restore sort of that, 12 to 13 to 15% of voters that we lose to the Republican Party these past couple cycles? Or will we continue to see more people deflect, right? And so I think that's going to be a larger question that we it's going to be like our topic of discussion going into the summer, right? Like where we are in terms of Republicrats or Democrats, right? Is it going to be a new age of political ideologies when it comes to black and brown men? And
I think we're already there. I think the question is the Democratic Party going to catch up and bring some of that back into the fold, right? Like there was a solid break of Democrats, going back to the 60s and the civil rights movement where Democrats, basically they locked in with the Democratic Party for generations. And I think we're possibly at the beginning of another realignment, where some of that demographic coalition is shifting back to the other side.
So, as we continue to do a case study on this Democrat turnover, right, like primary challengers in terms of renewal, I think, we're going to bring this conversation to a close. We definitely will encourage you guys to comment below, ask questions. Always please ask questions of Kevin and I. Subscribe. We don't get better until y'all open y'all mouths. And we need y'all to open y'all mouths.
Or argue with us.
Or, yes, please. We love a good argument.
I do get comments where people are like, you wrong.
I text my wife and ask her when she comes on the show, and she's left me on red, so.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We'll see. Mamba moment for today?
Yep.
What you got?
So my Mamba moment for today, I would give it to my cousin Jeremy, and Jeremy is my big cousin. I don't have siblings, so like my cousins are like my brothers. So he's like my big brother. I wanted to do everything like him when I was growing up, and what I always love about Jeremy is Jeremy. If Jeremy says he's going to do something, he does it. And so in a few weeks here, we will have the opportunity to go to his college graduation because he decided to go finish his education in his 40s. He's gotten his associates. He's now gotten his bachelor's, and he's moving forward with getting his MBA. And he already does well. He works at the Mercedes
that cousin
plant.
Oh yeah, okay.
Does really, really well. Great dad. Just wonderful, like, family guy. And so I'm just so proud of him because, again, he just popped up and was like, "Hey, I'm graduating." I'm like, "When did you go? When you know you was in school?" anything that dude says he puts his mind to, he does it, and he hustles how I hustles. You know, we have jobs and we have small businesses, and he's the same. He's the same way. I'm proud of him, and so he is my Mamba moment, because before I even had Kobe to look up to, I had him. So,
hats off to cousin Jeremy. I heard a lot about you. Congratulations. My award is going to go to a young man out of Augusta. His name is Jordan Johnson. He's a commissioner. I met Jordan probably 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Very young cat, got involved with Young Democrats. He became the president of Young Democrats Augusta chapter while I was serving as president of Young Dems Georgia. And I've just, stayed in contact with him ever since. He became commissioner, became county party chair. He's not even 35, but does great work in Augusta. He's, been a good, exemplary, upstanding young black man in that community. His father is not doing so well. He's in hospice now. And I know Jordan just, staying positive, keeping the faith, but also still serving his community to the highest and the best of his ability. Got a bright future, and so I just want to give him a shout out. He's one of those dams. No matter what, no job is too big, too small for him. If you need him to put out chairs or lawn chairs in the event, he'll do it and won't complain about it. And so, caps off to my man Jordan.
Nice. That's a nice name, Jordan.
There you go.
Got to be excellent.
All right, guys. Until next time. Thank you for joining. Spread the word. Peace.
Peace.